The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled into the private driveway of my mountain cabin in the Blue Ridge Hills, Virginia. It was a crisp October morning in 2024, the kind that makes you feel alive, with the air thick with the scent of pine and wet leaves. I'd left Richmond before dawn, eager to escape the city for a quiet weekend. The last 5 miles had been pure bliss, the narrow road winding through forests painted in fiery autumn hues. My old Chevy truck rumbled along, the only sound breaking the silence of the frost-covered pines. This cabin was my sanctuary, built board by board with my late wife, Emily, 30 years ago. Since she passed, every visit here felt like a conversation with her memory. I planned to light a fire, unpack my fishing gear, and sit on the deck, watching the mist rise off Lake Serenity. But that peace shattered the moment I turned into my driveway. A sleek silver Audi Q5 sat in my usual parking spot, its clean tires screaming city driver. My heart gave a sharp thud. I cut the engine and sat there, gripping the key, my mind racing through possibilities. Lost tourists? A realtor's mistake? I'd seen it once before years ago, but then I noticed smoke curling from the chimney. Someone was inside my house. My stomach twisted as I stepped out into the biting air. I didn't grab the crowbar from under the seat, though the thought crossed my mind. 30 years as a paramedic had taught me to stay calm, assess, and not escalate. I walked up the stone path, my boots silent on the frozen ground. The curtains Emily had made were wide open, something I never did when I left. The front door, a heavy maple slab with a deadbolt I always double-checked, swung open with a soft click. It wasn't locked. Voices hit me as I stepped inside, a woman's sharp commands and a kid's laughter. My home, my refuge, was alive with strangers. The air smelled of burned bacon and cheap lavender perfume. A neon green jacket hung over a chair Emily had upholstered. Muddy hiking boots sat by the door, leaving a puddle on the oak floor I'd sanded myself. 2 coffee mugs, one with a smudge of red lipstick, sat on the entry table. These people weren't just here, they were living here. A woman in her 50s appeared from the hallway, her hair stiff with spray, wearing a jacket with HOA stitched on it. Her eyes flicked from surprise to suspicion in a heartbeat. "Excuse me," she snapped, stepping forward. "This property is under HOA inspection. You can't be here." Her voice dripped with rehearsed authority. I kept my cool. "Ma'am, I'm Tom Harper. This is my cabin. I own it." I expected an apology, a mix-up to untangle. Instead, she smirked. "I know who you are, Mr. Harper. We have an emergency occupancy order. You were notified." Notified? My mail was forwarded from Richmond, and my box was empty when I left at 5 a.m. "I got no notice," I said, my voice steady. "Let's call Greg Thompson, the HOA president, and clear this up." Her eyes flashed irritation. "Greg's away. The vice chair approved it. It's legal." Before I could demand to see this so-called order, she pulled out her phone, dialed 911, and put on a performance that would have won awards. "Help. There's an aggressive man in my house at 127 Lakeview Drive. My daughter and I are terrified." She stared at me, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. 2 deputies arrived, their cruiser easing up behind my truck. They were calm, professional, one older, with a lined face and a name tag reading Carter, the other younger, sharp-eyed, named Lopez. Carter spoke first, his voice even. "We got a call about a disturbance." "What's going on?" The woman, who I now called Linda in my head, launched into her act, clutching her chest. "Thank God you're here." This man barged in, acting threatening. "I told him this is HOA property under an emergency order, but he won't leave." I waited, then spoke slowly. "Officers, I'm Tom Harper. My license and truck registration list this address. I own this cabin. I found her here, living in my home." Lopez asked Linda for the order. She handed over a single sheet, titled Temporary Reassignment Occupancy Order. I glanced at it. The HOA letterhead was wrong, a garish lime green instead of the deep teal they used. Typos jumped out. Propert instead of property. Authorization with an S. My paramedic brain cataloged it. Evidence, timestamped 11:45 a.m. Carter read aloud. "This claims a structural issue with the lakefront retaining wall, granting temporary occupancy, pending review." My wall was solid granite, rebuilt a decade ago. That wall's stronger than this cabin, I said. That paper's fake. Linda gasped dramatically. How dare you? Carter raised a hand. Let's verify this with the HOA. They went inside with Linda while I waited by my truck. Through the window, I saw her, arms crossed, radiating confidence. Carter returned, his face neutral. The president's out of town, but the vice chair, Mark Reynolds, confirms the order. Says you were notified last week. Mark Reynolds, Linda's brother. I'd seen him at HOA meetings, always hovering near her. This was no mistake, it was a setup. Carter's voice softened. Until we verify this, you need to vacate. As he spoke, a teenage girl, Linda's daughter, carried a box with my grandfather's fishing lures and Emily's gift, my custom rod, into the garage, now packed with their junk. She smirked at me, laughing as she vanished inside. My home was being looted, and I was being evicted. Driving away felt like betrayal. Every instinct screamed to stay, but escalating with deputies was a losing game. Linda watched from my window, her smirk burning into me. I checked into the Mountain View Motel, a dingy place with a buzzing neon sign. My room smelled of stale smoke, but it was my base now. I saved photos I'd snapped of Linda's Audi, its plate clear, and the cabin with smoke rising. I noted the fake order's details wrong, letterhead, typos, time of the 911 call. Then I called the county clerk. No emergency orders for 127 Lakeview Drive, the clerk said firmly. Not ever. I emailed the HOA, requesting all inspection logs for my property. 2 hours later, Mark Reynolds replied, "Your request is under review." A stall tactic. My anger mixed with grief. Emily's memory was in every inch of that cabin. They weren't just stealing a house, they were desecrating my life. Late that night, a note slid under my door. They've done this before. Check HOA minutes, July 2020. My pulse raced. Who left it? A neighbor? A guilty board member? I logged into the HOA's clunky website and found the July 2020 minutes. On page 2, emergency occupation of 312 Willow Lane for safety concerns, authorized by Vice Chair Mark Reynolds. I needed more. I called my friend Sam Carter, a retired building inspector. That order's nonsense, he said. No such thing exists. Check the font, and Seal County uses serif and a raised embossed seal. Linda's paper had neither. I got the sheriff's report, including a scan of her order. The signature matched the 2020 minutes exactly, same sloppy M, same jagged R. I had them. The HOA meeting was my chance. I couldn't approach the cabin due to a harassment complaint Linda and her husband, Paul, filed, claiming I was stalking them. But the meeting was public. The community hall was packed with neighbors, the air thick with tension. Linda sat up front with Paul and Mark, radiating authority. I waded through tedious reports, then stood. I have documents for the board, I said, laying out the fake order, the county's email denying its existence, the 2020 minutes, and a side-by-side signature comparison. The room went silent. Linda leapt up, shrieking, "He's a criminal, forging papers to slander us." But Mark cracked. "You can't prove those signatures are the same," he blurted, his voice panicked. It was a confession. The crowd murmured, but the board, spineless, voted to review the issue later. Linda smirked, jangling my keys as she left. I was gutted. They'd ignored hard evidence. 2 days later, defeat weighed heavy. But a new idea sparked. I called my friend Nate, an electrical engineer. "Can you check my cabin's meter from the lake?" I asked. The harassment order didn't cover the water. We met at the public dock, motoring silently to my cabin. Through binoculars, Nate spotted an illegal splice on the power line, bypassing the meter. "That's theft," he said, snapping time-stamped photos. I called the utility company, reporting a safety hazard. They acted fast, sending an investigative team with deputies. 2 days later, Deputy Carter called. Arrest warrants issued for Linda Grayson and Mark Reynolds' felony utility theft and conspiracy to commit occupancy fraud. Neighbors watched as Linda was cuffed, her smugness crumbling. Mark was arrested at his office. The court was brutal. My documents proved the fraud. The utilities photos sealed it. They owed $387 for stolen power and $4,200 in back rent. The judge banned them from HOA rolls for a decade. The HOA, shamed, passed new rules. No inspections without owners present, all orders verified with the county. I returned to my cabin, airing out the last of Linda's perfume. At dawn, I sat on the dock, coffee in hand, the lake glowing gold. The truth had won. You can't argue with gravity. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have fought harder or walked away? Who do you think left that note under my door? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, and subscribe for more stories of justice.